Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at a Marvel Omnibus. This is the Iron Fist by Brubaker, Fraction and Aja. And this is, I believe, the complete run that they done together. Although I have later learned that I believe this story continues on by a different writer, so it's a little bit I guess disjointed in the sense that this doesn't finish that story, even though they've already got two writers on this book. But the basic premise of this book is to give us an origin of the Iron Fist, not as a person but as a concept, and to let us know a bit of the history around that and kind of just build a kind of story from there. So let's take a closer look at the book itself, and then we can come back and discuss my thoughts overall. On the front of the dust jacket here, we've got the Iron Fist. This is Danny Rand, obviously. We've got a bit of a backdrop of the kind of heavenly city. It says Eisner Award nominee and best new kind of series. We've got the Immortal Iron Fist on the spine, and then we've got various covers on the back, as Marvel like to do. And it says here, collecting Immortal Iron Fist 1 through 16, Annual 1, Orson Rand and the Green Mist of Death, Iron Fist, the origin of Danny Rand, and material from Civil War, choosing sides. This has a really cool green sort of leather look. I don't know if this is real leather or not, let's call it leather, with the gold kind of embossed on the front. That looks really cool, and similarly gold on the side here. So yeah, just a really cool looking book overall. As you'll have seen on my Instagram or my pickups when I first kind of got this book, the previous owner to myself had actually re-glued the binding, but they'd glued the binding to the actual spine, so the entire spine of the book was buckling. You could probably still see some of that ruffles in the actual edge here, and that just hasn't kind of relaxed back, but it was buckling along with the book itself, and I had to use some sticky stuff remover and various kind of spodgers just to kind of go in and clean that off so that the book would spread again properly. So it is spreading totally fine now, no issues whatsoever with the bind there, and I'll show you the same on the opposite side. Again, lifts up straight away and curves fine, so I didn't have any issues with the binding once I'd resolved that. But it was scary for a moment there because this is an expensive book and it just looked awful. So let's have a look inside. We've got a sort of green intro page, and then we've got the sort of contents here. Now, this is spread into sort of which issues and things, but it doesn't really give us page numbers, so it can be a little bit confusing. The main thing to take away, I guess, from this is that the main story itself and the side stories were written as a collaboration between Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker, whereas the origin of Danny Rand was specifically written by Roy Thomas, Len Venn and Matt Fraction. So that wasn't anything to do with Ed Brubaker or the original kind of collection, if you like. So just, I say, something to kind of bear in mind. And some of these other side stories have different artists as well. Just, again, something to take into account. Kind of thrown straight in to an event, I guess, where an Iron Fist has to sort of save the day. And just kind of says, halt! You know, it's kind of cool. The art was okay throughout. I don't think it was great. Some of these sort of facial expressions and things I could have done with a bit more detail. It's not really as fleshed as I would have particularly got in a Brubaker book sometimes when it's done. should I say, like Epting's art or Phillips or anything like that. There are quite a few different artists throughout those, so it does kind of change as we go through areas of the book. And I really like these kind of splitting up pages with the kind of Asian text and the kind of cover on the opposite sides. The spread of this book is really good. I mean, I don't own that many Marvel Omnibus, but all the ones that I have owned spread really, really well, and the curve just, you know, goes off. So I haven't had any issues, as I say, with the build of the book itself. It's so easy to kind of read, and it's so refreshing coming from some of the DC books that you really do have to fight the omnibus to kind of sit open. There's a drastic art change for you. We do get some of the Heroes for Hire kind of jumping in and other kind of characters throughout things, so they sometimes have to do a little bit of a throwback to kind of show that, and the art typically changes around that. I do like the contrast here as well, where you've got the kind of green and yellow mask against the very sort of purpley pink background. And then when you look at these guys, you've actually got the greys and purples melding into their backgrounds, which is quite interesting. I don't know if they're trying to say something there in the sense of these guys are part of the furniture in some ways, I don't know. And so I don't want to spoil the end of the actual kind of story arc, so let's skip into this is the sort of origin of Iron Fist story. I wasn't really a fan, as I say, of the story or the art, to be honest. It was just a bit kind of, I don't know, felt very sort of slapsticky and not really to my taste. And then there's a bit of kind of history and stuff on Iron Fist at the back, which I haven't actually read yet. And then there's some sort of script stuff and sort of designs of costumes and things. I've read a bit of this. It's quite interesting as to how they came up with the various kind of costumes, or the big kind of spider bad guy. Alright, so quite a lot to, I guess, cover in this book overall. There's a few different things, I guess, included, and it's definitely a worthwhile read. I don't know if it's quite worth the, I guess, prices that some people are having to pay online because it's now out of print. I paid a little bit over what I would have liked to, but I'm a huge Ed Brubaker fan, so I just had to have it on my shelf alongside the other Brubaker books. But unless you're in a similar situation, I would probably hold off until you get it at a much closer to sort of retail price. So there's basically three different things in this book overall. We've got a few origin stories or kind of light throwback stories of other Iron Fists. There's this one female Iron Fist who kind of journeys off and kind of has a bit of a back and forth with her kind of fisherman husband and things, and that's quite interesting in kind of olden sort of Asian sort of times. There's a couple of different kind of ones I say that they kind of throw back to, and they just kind of jump in and show those kind of stories. I think the very first couple of pages is actually a different Iron Fist, and they just kind of do that and then jump straight to kind of Danny. I found those really interesting. I would actually have probably enjoyed a complete book if it was just, you know, 4 or 5 issues, sort of short runs of each Iron Fist. If they wanted to do that for, I think they claim there's like 66 different Iron Fists throughout the generations. If they wanted to do, you know, 66 short runs, I'd be all for that. I guess it depends on how good the writers are writing them and, you know, things like that, but that would have been an interesting take. Anyway, though, as I say, they've done a few in here, and it was a really fun, interesting read, getting that different kind of feels, and not being a massive sort of fan of Danny Rand, or knowing that much about Danny Rand, I really enjoyed seeing some of those other characters and how they tied to the Iron Fist. And something that they make very, very specific here is that the person who is the Iron Fist is not immortal. The Iron Fist is immortal and will always kind of relive. And that's really interesting as an overall kind of concept. The main middle arcing story is the story of, I think they call it like the seven cities of heaven or something like that. And basically each of these cities has their own immortal weapon, and they're all joining together at a certain sort of time with Earth. They have like their cycles where sort of each one connects with Earth every sort of maybe 10 years or something, and then they connect all at the same time once every maybe 100 years, and they have this kind of tournament amongst their various kind of Iron Fists. Ongoing with this story though, we learn that Danny was trained somewhat, or knows of the previous Iron Fist, Orson Randall, who basically ignored or ran away from this contest, and is kind of somewhat tainting Danny's, I guess, thoughts on why he would kind of fight or not fight in this kind of competition, and that kind of runs through there. There's also an arc around Danny's father and Orson, and this other guy who becomes the Steel Phoenix, I believe. He's kind of a purple Iron Fist type guy. And I got a little bit confused there, to be honest, as to whose sort of friend or now enemy he's supposed to be, because as the book goes throughout, Danny, his dad, and Orson look very similar in certain sequences, and since I read the book over a 2-3 day period coming back to it, sometimes I just wasn't quite sure as to how that all kind of ties together. So I think there's definitely opportunity for me to reread at least that main arc in the middle and kind of flesh out who's tied to who, because some of that kind of went over my head a little bit. This guy is the son of the main Thunderer, and the Thunderer is the guy who trains the sort of next Iron Fist to be, if you like, and that's how that all kind of comes kind of full circle. So this guy thought he was going to be the next Iron Fist, didn't get it, and essentially goes off on his own path and becomes an enemy of the kind of Iron Fist. The story comes to its own kind of, I guess, somewhat climax where various parties do different things. I don't want to spoil how that all kind of goes, but a lot of the various kind of sides have to come together and go for one sort of combined goal that they all have to kind of fight for, and we get a nice kind of conclusion, I guess, to the main kind of arc, although there's definitely much more room to move forward, because as I say, there is an arc after this for that main story, which is not included in this book, because I believe it's by other writers. I don't remember their names, but as I say, there's more to this. I don't know if it's in a hardcover. I would like an oversized hardcover to go with this. I don't really want a trade sitting next to it, but as I don't know, it's just something I read about kind of recently. The last couple of issues in the book are an origin story of Danny Rand, and to be honest, I didn't enjoy it. It's written by, I believe, Fraction alone, and it felt like we were just reading the same story over and over. And now, as I say, I'm not the biggest fan of Danny anyway, but his story didn't need to be told like 4 times in this book. It's told as like a flashback thing really quickly at the start of the main story, and that was more than enough for me to know kind of that story. There's little bits of flashbacks throughout the actual story, kind of trickling things in, and that's great. That all works totally fine. But then they give a single issue, which is like the run-up to his origin story, and then the issue 2 of that recaps that basically entire issue in about 2 pages, and then gives the second half of his origin story. And it just didn't feel right. Like, it was like, for one, we didn't need both issues then. We only needed the issue 2. And secondly, it was already in the book. so you could have used that 2-3 issue worth of space to maybe have actually continued the book, because this isn't a massive thick omnibus. They could have quite easily included about 2 trades or more worth of extra content in there and had the complete run. They might have had to put some more names on here, and it might not have sold as well, you know, with it not being as maybe a bigger name as sort of Brubaker or Fraction, but it would have been a complete story, and that's, I guess, the disappointing side here, is that now I'm going to have to get a further book to kind of complete that, and it feels somewhat like they've done with a lot of runs recently, that they split it out. So the Azzarello Wonder Woman for DC, they kind of split that out in the last 2 sort of or 3 volumes by Finch is not included, and there's been a few different books where that's kind of been done. So for me, I prefer it to be a complete story rather than, you know, focused on just that one writer. I do like that when you get a writer-orientated book that it cuts a lot of the annuals and other crap out that doesn't need to be there, but I would still want the main story. So as I say, in this case, I'd have been quite happy if they wanted to have taken the side Iron Fist stories out and made that maybe a separate book, had the complete Iron Fist Cities story between all the writers in the omnibus, and then, yeah, ignore that extra sort of single origin story things that we just don't need. The Brubaker focus stuff, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is the bits that I enjoyed, and that would make sense because, you know, that's the writer that I bought the book for. So it's definitely worth reading for that, and I'm definitely, as I say, going to at some point check out the sort of follow-on story. I don't know if it'll be as good, you know, and we'll review that at the time, and I'll probably need to reread this, as I say, to kind of refresh things in my head anyway, and pick up some of the things that I just think I read maybe a little bit too quickly or didn't kind of grasp the first time round. But the great thing with owning these is that I can go back to it as many times as I want now that I've kind of got it. So enough of my rambling. That's it for this closer look video, guys, on the Immortal Iron Fist by Brubaker, Fraction and Aja. As I say, it's a good book overall. I just would have liked the complete kind of story, I guess. As always, let me know below if you're planning on picking this up, in which formats you have it, if you have managed to pick up the story, and if you've read the kind of complete further arc. That would be interesting to kind of know. As always though, rate this video and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.